welcome to the Tea and the Butty podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
Today is another Places We Want to Go series, or entry, as it were.
We haven't done one of these in ages, it feels like.
Feels like it. I mean, maybe that's because of the pandemic, I don't know. Feels like we've been just, it feels like we do these twice a week.
Podcasts.
Regularly.
Yeah.
But it feels like sometimes it's like, oh, it's been months. To me anyway, it feels like it's been a while since we've done a podcast.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because I get them all edited and out and stuff, pretty early on. But yeah. So yeah, this is Places We Want to Go.
Yes.
And it's Dover this time.
Dover, yeah.
So where is Dover, Erica?
Oh, jeez. Before we get into this, I think Dover is an interesting choice that a lot of people wouldn't think about in Britain.
No.
The obvious ones are like London, Liverpool maybe for some people. Where else? That's
it. That's the only two cities in Britain. London and Liverpool. That's all it.
Maybe that's all it. Maybe Oxford and Cambridge. Maybe
Bath,
maybe the Cotswolds if they've
Stonehenge,
heard about that. Yeah.
Dorset and Wiltshire and all that.
But Dover not so much, I don't think.
Dover, yeah, and it's funny because Dover's, I think, the closest point to mainland Europe.
Oh, really?
Britain, yeah. It's only 20 miles to France.
Mm.
The main, and I think if you walk the White Cliffs, which are the famous landmark of like Dover when you're coming in from the ferry and stuff from the Strait of Dover, which is in the English Channel.
Mm.
If you look out from the White Cliffs, if you're standing on the highest point of it, you can see the coastline of France because it's only 20 miles away. On a clear day, you can see it.
Yeah.
And the same being said from France, you can see the chalky White Cliffs.
You guys have to keep in mind that in this Places We Want to Go series, these are all literally places we either have never been, period, or that maybe Dominic's been, but not
I've been to Dover
since he was little.
We've gone to, we did a Calais, because back in the day, shall we say, 30 odd years ago, something like that. I mean, it was very popular for people from Britain, particularly who lived around the southeast of England or southwest of England, was to drive to Dover and get on a ferry and go to Calais and buy up booze because it was cheap.
Yeah.
It was cheap to go on the booze cruises, they called them.
Yeah.
And so I went on one of these trips with my dad.
As a wee lad. So I've been to Dover. I got on the ferry and we went over there. Yeah, I mean, you remember this?
I vaguely remember it, yeah. I mean, but it was we just literally, I think we drove to the port and got on. People would drive their cars and just go do that for the day and they go and stock up on cheap liquor and cheap beer and everything and bring it back in, smuggle it back in.
Mm. But for the most part, these are places that we've never been, or you can't really remember.
I can't really remember much about.
Or if you have been there, you didn't really see much.
I didn't really see much, no.
And so these are places that may be based on discussions we've had in the past about, just different historical events or places maybe that our family or friends or somebody have been to and mentioned, or that we've seen in any of these numerous British shows that we watch.
Numerous British shows that we watch.
And they're set in different places. And it's like, oh, that looks like a good place to go. So just keep that in mind because we're not talking from experience of having been to these places. This is just all information that we've kind of
discussion.
Yeah, this is all information that we've just looked up and we just think, oh, that'd be really cool.
And we're both very into history, so Dover has a long history too.
Yeah.
I mean, originally it was Dubris or Dubry, I think. It was a Roman settlement.
Yeah.
A Roman port town, and so that's where Dover stands today. On that settlement, and it's a port town in Kent, in the county of Kent, which is in the southeast of England. I mean, I should have looked this up how many miles it is to London, but it's quite close.
It begs the question, though: how the hell did the Romans?
How the hell did the Romans get there?
Yeah. How did they get there? No, yeah, but
Boats.
Dover is on cliffs, isn't it? It's like
there
weren't stairs up. Did they have climbing gear?
Well, no, it's
how
not.
They get up there? How they got there?
I mean, there's a harbor and everything. I think it's a natural harbor and stuff, and there's a port.
Is there?
Yeah. There's stuff.
A natural one.
Yeah, you come out and the cliffs are there. It's kind of like an inlet.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, but back then, who knows what it looked like?
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been much higher because, cliff erosion now.
Or maybe it could have been lower. I don't know.
There's cliff erosion. I mean, there's if you're going in the Strait of Dover, you're likely to see a landslide from one of the chalk cliffs.
The chalk, aren't they?
The chalk with a bit of flint.
Yeah.
Because they're not they're not gleaming white.
You don't want to stand on the edge, basically.
Well, depends how brave you are, really, because it's very windy in Dover. It's because it's on the strait, so there's wind coming up. We walk down the creek.
Yeah.
And, there's a bit of wind coming up because it's an open space, but it's also a channel for the water and everything. So the wind naturally somehow follows it.
Yeah.
I can imagine that it's like that in Dover. I mean, I vaguely remember it being very, very windy there. But it's also, I grew up in seaside towns. So it was windy there anyway because we were on the sea, I
remember my mom went to Dover.
She went to Dover
They went to
all I remember it was very windy and cold.
They didn't even, because I think they went to go look at the castle.
There's a castle in Dover.
Yeah. And it was because it's not like a castle where you go inside.
Founded in the 11th century.
It's not you don't go inside this castle.
It's the largest castle in England.
But I don't know that there's inside. You know what I mean?
There is, but it's
or maybe it wasn't open, so they were just going to see the outside.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's an inside, but there's tunnels in there, which will, talk about.
But I remember her saying, she didn't even really, I was like, oh yeah, how was Dover? That's really cool. I want to go there. Oh, I don't remember any of it. It was just freezing, windy, and raining.
Because she was going on a cruise, because all the cruise ships come into Dover. She was going on a cruise around
they just come back on the bus or whatever.
Wasn't it? Was it the Mediterranean?
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was one of those cruises.
It wasn't the Mediterranean not from Britain, it wasn't. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, yeah. I mean, I imagine maybe Scandinavia. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But yeah, no, she was going to, it was just an entry, an embarkation to the cruise,
Yeah.
So she wasn't there that long.
And she was just like, oh, I don't remember what, I didn't see anything. It was too cold.
It was too cold and it was too windy.
Yeah.
Because it's very windy up there. Of course, Dover, it's been an important port town for many years. It was, the castle was founded in 11th century. It was founded by William the Conqueror in 1066. And it was rebuilt for Henry II, King John, and Henry III, and it expanded the castle to this, and it's apparently the largest castle in England.
I was going to say that the pictures I've seen of it look like it's quite big.
And the current size takes its curtain walls, they call it, to the edge of the cliffs. Mm-hmm. So if those cliffs erode, then it might be a bit dangerous.
Yeah. My uncle, before the first time I went to Britain, I was asking everybody I knew that had been to the
What's
UK
going on
before.
in Britain? What's there to see?
What should I see? What should I be sure to see? What can I leave off, And I wanted to see castles, which I'm sure we've talked about before in this podcast.
I want to see castles.
And Dover Castle was one of the castles he recommended that I go see, and I ended up not. We ended up going to Leeds Castle, which I think we've talked about, or we're going to talk about. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about Leeds. I think we've talked about it before, but we'll go over it again because you want to hear it again.
We've either talked about it in a previous episode, or we've got it coming up in some episode. But anyway, and I didn't go. And I remember he was like, oh, Dover Castle was so awesome because, it has all this history, but then they also used it, which I'm sure you'll talk about, but they also used it as a fort, I guess, during World War II.
Yeah.
And so the soldiers would, because you could see across the channel to France, which is where the Nazis were.
Yeah.
And so the soldiers would walk the castle walls, they were guarding Britain.
Yeah.
And he said there's I don't know if it's just one area of the walls or if you can see it in several different, or if it was more than one guy doing it.
Yeah.
Where they'd like scratched in the wall to mark off the days, how many days they'd been there, freaking like
garrisoned. It was a garrison in the World War II.
It so much history, I mean as if the even older history isn't enough. You've got that kind of history too. It's just so interesting. Definitely want to visit there.
It was captured in 1642 by
just going back a ways.
but during the Civil War,
during
the English Civil War, and the Royalist garrison was there, and I think it was the townspeople. They climbed the cliffs and surprised the Royalists there and captured it.
Oh my god!
And then it was kind of like largely left untouched until the Napoleonic Wars, when it was kind of like it was advantageous to capture like seaports and stuff,
Yeah.
And so they dug tunnels into the cliff.
Oh yeah.
For the garrison back then.
Yeah. I think my uncle told me about the tunnels. Yeah.
So they dug them to accommodate like the garrison of people, and all that. But when the Napoleonic War came to an end, for like a century, those tunnels were abandoned.
Oh, yeah.
And everything was kind of like abandoned until World War II. And then they were like, oh, well, we could turn this into an air raid shelter because, the Nazis and everything were bombing. And that was not the place to be during World War II. If you lived in Dover, you needed to get out of there.
Yeah.
Because, you had the threat of Operation Sea Lion, which was Hitler's plan to invade Britain via the sea,
Yeah.
But that came to nothing because the Royal Navy had a presence and it was quite well defended.
Yeah.
But also the Luftwaffe and the RAF during the Battle of Britain.
Yeah.
Were having dogfights in the air, and reporters would go to like the cliffs of Dover and just watch them do it. Like during the Battle of Britain, they just like, oh yeah, yes, he's got him, he's got the Jerry, good show, old chap, all that kind of stuff, but it's like, and they were bombing it, and they were shelling.
They filmed all that kind of stuff to let people know what was going on.
Yeah. But of course, then there was was an air raid shell, but then it became like a command center for like.
You almost can't even believe that there's anything of the castle left really after World War II.
It's amazing that it managed to kind of stand the shelling, because there was a museum, the Dover Museum, which was founded in 1836.
Yeah.
And it had all this great collection of like, historical collections and stuff like that.
Oh, no, yeah.
Boom. From France, they shelled it.
Yeah.
And everything that was like pre-World War II was pretty much lost,
Ugh.
And,
It makes you sick.
It's all right, though, because they had these two big battery... They had these two big battery guns, to shell into France.
Yeah.
And they called one Winnie and the other Pooh.
Oh, my God.
So Winnie the Pooh got them. Winnie the Pooh got the Jerrys.
No.
These two, but it was just one of those, like... things, and it was an underground hospital. I remember your mother saying, "Oh yeah, there was something about an underground hospital too." Yeah. I just wonder, and it's just because you were talking about would he have left from Dover, and we thought it's very unlikely. It's probably Dorset he would have left from.
Yeah, we were trying to look.
He might have come back into Dover.
We were trying to look up. I don't know if we have any like World War II experts who listen to us.
World War II experts, make yourself known. Yeah, history buffs, make yourself known.
Yeah, let us know for sure.
Yeah.
But my grandfather fought in World War II, and he remembered. You guys, if you have any World War II, or if you had any World War II, veterans in your family, that they didn't really talk about the war that much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So when he did, we just kind of let him talk. Like we didn't really ask a lot of questions, unfortunately, because it was just like, we knew it was a hard subject in the first place. But there was, he would mention something, and this is years ago, you guys, because he's been gone now for a while, but he would mention something about seeing the about having seen the White Cliffs of Dover. Yeah. So my question to Dominic when he was doing this research was, is there any chance that my grandfather left from Dover to go to France? Because he fought at Normandy.
Yeah.
But you were looking it up and
I looked it up and I was like, oh, where did they launch from? Because it was the infantry went by sea, they weren't paradropped in there or anything, parachuted in. And it was like, oh, it was probably from Portland in Dorset.
Okay.
Or Weymouth.
Which is a ways down from Dover.
Yeah, it's like it's around the coast. It's around the south coast.
Mm-hmm. Because Dover is more east.
Yeah, it's southeast. Right? Southeast England. So it was very likely from there. I mean, I don't know exactly because I obviously haven't seen any records or anything like that of where he was. But a lot of people said, oh yes, when the Americans finally entered the war in 42 or 43, it was they were camped there. They were like this whole operation. They were training for it.
Okay, yeah.
Because this Operation D-Day landings, I think it was called Operation Neptune, was years in the making. When it was actually in the making as soon as Hitler turned on Russia.
Yeah.
And then Stalin was like, "Oh well, you've got to start getting Hitler,"
Yeah.
And I think Eisenhower or someone was like, yeah, we need to start doing that. But Churchill was like, no, we've got to wait because we don't, even with your help, we don't have the resources to fight off the war machine of the Nazis.
Yeah.
We don't have the resources to take France. We need to delay it.
Mm-hmm.
So, they were training there for like a year or more.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was I fell down like a research hole of like, oh, what was going on. Because, apparently these towns were like, these little like villages in Dorset were taken over and then just kind of abandoned. They were requisitioned for military use and then they were abandoned, and the townsfolk who lived there before just never moved back. So they're now just there in the wilderness.
Really?
Yeah, it's like ghost towns.
Oh God, now we have somewhere else to put on our places we want to go list.
And I was just looking up and it's like, oh wow, this is really cool, And of course back then, like the American soldiers came over. I was looking up this, like, the American serviceman handbook of, like, what to do when you're in Britain, not to offend the locals and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, they don't have anything. They're on heavy rationing. And so, like, they were handing out Hershey bars and chewing gum and everything to kids. And there was some story about, oh, yeah, the serviceman would give us extra tins of Spam.
Yeah.
And back then it was like if you had any more meat than your ration, then, you there was severe consequences. You could get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember my dad freaking burying the tins in the garden in case they were discovered,
God.
It's like, because these Americans were just like, oh, yeah, we got loads of, we're big rich, like making it rain,
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of like, we're well fed, there was not really any rationing going on in America. They might have been at some point, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, I mean there was, but it was not as hardcore as Britain by any means.
No, because we had to import a lot of stuff, and like the German submarines would torpedo the boats and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was like there was blockades and everything, so Britain was pretty much starving, and all the money was going to the army to like win this war.
Yeah.
So that's why the grow your own thing and allotments and all that. Yeah, we've talked about all this before. So
I think this is a separate podcast.
Anyway, back to Dover.
But so you came up with the fact that because the White Cliffs of Dover are so pronounced, that probably just when you're in France, if it's a clear day, you could see them.
Yeah, because I think it goes from like they're part of the North Downs. But I think it all goes around the whole of the southeast and south kind of west. Well, not all of the southwest, but a good majority of it is White Cliffs. But because they're so like high and everything where Dover is, it's like, oh yeah, they're so noticeable.
Yeah.
You're coming along from Calais, because the main ferry routes are Dover to Calais and Dover to Dunkirk. And of course Dunkirk was the expeditionary force that failed in when Hitler started invading Poland and stuff. the British thought, oh, we'll just send a little expeditionary force and, we'll sort this out. They won't do it again. But, of course, it was like a massive war machine and they had to evacuate.
So probably when the sun is in position, those things really gleam and you can see them for a ways.
I can imagine that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen photos of people at, I forget the French name, I think Grey-Nose Point or something, which is like the closest point between the two. And, they're just standing on the point looking out and you can just see them in the distance, there's just big white, like, teeth.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
That's so cool.
And I mean, that's on a clear day, you'll see them.
Do you have information? I mean, we vaguely mentioned that they're made of chalk, but do you
Chalk and flint.
Chalk and flint.
Yeah, because there's like...
if you got... I just want to be
the geology is like obviously formed...
Yeah.
70 million years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be sure and mention for anybody who, we're going on about the cliffs and anybody listening who has absolutely no idea what we're even talking about. Dover
obviously
is famous.
Hasn't heard the Vera Lynn song, There'll Be Bluebirds Over the White Cliffs of Dover.
Yeah.
It's, that's a famous song during the war. And of course, that if they became an icon, according to the National Trust anyway, they're an icon of Britain.
Yeah.
The White Cliffs of Dover, it's like, the symbol of home to all the Tommies out there fighting,
Yeah.
And... it's like Vera Lynn, the Force's sweetheart, singing "There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover" and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, if you saw that picture, you wouldn't think it was anywhere else. I can't think of anywhere else
that looks like that. Yeah, because I mean, there's not really much of that kind of like geology, really, geological formation.
So anyway, as I was saying, anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Dover is a town or city.
It's a town
set on top of these, like, I don't know how tall they are even.
I think they get up to like, I think the highest, yeah,
it's a set on these white cliffs, and they are white. It's not like, it's not just a name.
It's not just a name, no.
It's like they're perfectly white. I assume that probably extends down into the water and makes the water look pretty blue, if I were guessing, around there, because they're just these chalky white cliffs, and they are extraordinarily high. Like, kind of looks like another planet, I don't know, from the water, you're just like, oh, it doesn't look like Earth. It's just so, like, awe-inspiring. I cannot wait to actually see it in person someday.
From the Strait of Dover, they're pretty impressive. It's kind of like, coming in to, like, my dad said, funnily enough, when we were bussing into Gibraltar, you're coming through the mountains of Spain and stuff like that, and then boom, you see this huge rock, and you're just like, oh, it's pretty bloody impressive, actually. Yeah. It's just like, oh, it must be impressive from the sea, too.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't see them from the land, because you're on them.
Oh, the cliffs.
The cliffs, yeah.
Yeah.
So, from the Strait of Dover.
And like I said, I don't think
you want to... it's like, it's very white, and it's like with little streaks of black.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you don't really want to get like to the edge either, because they are literally straight down. Like, they don't slope. It's not a hill.
It's not a hill.
Yeah, they're cliffs for a reason.
Yeah.
And
of course the erosion and stuff. They think that's it's been eroding for years, but I mean, in the last kind of like 50 or so years, or 150 years, it's gone faster than normal. And they think, oh, that's probably because they've been putting out groins and stuff. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, you asked me what they were.
I was just going to ask you what it is now.
it's something that kind of like those walls, you see those like walls that they put into the sea, like those wooden walls that can be made of stone, and they jut out from the beach into the water.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what are they for? They're just kind of like to like stop silt build up and everything, and just keep it all under control.
What, like that rock wall that we have a picture
groins.
of me sitting on?
Yes.
It's not like really a wall. It's sort of like a peninsula type thing.
That's a groin. Yeah,
oh, okay.
that was specifically formed to like kind of like help with like, it's usually beaches and stuff and stuff like that. But groins coming out from there haven't helped the erosion. It's just accelerated it in a way. But, they need it because I don't know what really purpose a groin really serves, but it's to sort of stop silt build up and stop this happening and create a beach and
Do you remember this video that we saw on, this is kind of like not really podcast talk unless you guys have seen the video that I'm talking about, but this video one time of this house on the side of a cliff and they knew that it was about to go. That was somewhere in Britain. Was that in Dover?
No,
and they were filming it, and they were like, "Oh, it's gonna go because
any second, because
the land was just literally falling out from underneath it."
No one was in this house, obviously, but it had been sold. It was like it was on very like. Oh, yeah,
I feel like that was Dover, but maybe it was somewhere like Whitby or somewhere like
somewhere obviously along the coast. I mean, but maybe it was the south coast. It does seem familiar. I don't know. But yeah, you asked me how tall the White Cliffs get. 350 feet.
Okay.
I think that they reach that height.
So that's like, what, 30 stories? Right? Isn't a story of a building about 10 feet or so?
Yeah, something.
So about 30 stories tall?
Yeah.
That's pretty tall.
Yeah, I mean, that's... and I don't, there's obviously like, there's like walking paths out from the city centre into, the town centre.
Yeah, so what else, really quickly, if we have time, or if you have it in your notes anyway, what else is there to see around the area? Because obviously the castle and the cliffs themselves are pretty impressive all by themselves.
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. I mean, the town of Dover is just like a town itself, any other English town.
Was it like really bombed during the war?
Well, yeah.
Go see the Asda, you guys.
Go see the Asda.
Just the best Asda.
You love an Asda. You love an Asda. Don't even get me started on your obsession with Asda. You're just like, oh, Asda. We got to go to Asda. Yeah. It's it's just that and the port. The castle and the cliffs, and that's pretty much it. Because, the National Trust. I think Vera Lynn, sometime, obviously before she died, she encouraged people to buy up a portion of the cliffs to stop developers getting their hands on it.
Oh yeah,
and it worked. They bought it and they donated it to the National Trust.
That's funny. Yeah,
and the National Trust is like, oh yeah, we're going to put World War II stuff here, and because I mean it was heavily bombed during World War II. Shelled as well because the guns from France could reach them. They could bomb the museum. So they were shelling them. They were shelling them. Well, during the Blitz, I think probably constantly.
Yeah.
They were under
so
constant
basically,
bombardment,
a lot of history in the castle, and then a lot of just World War II history.
Yes.
Yeah, which and then a lot of impressive just nature.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, the walks.
Yeah.
And everything,
I love that because any footage I've ever seen of Dover, there's nothing really for like a good distance with the cliffs. It's just greenery, and then nothing. Cliffs and ocean, and that's awesome because you could definitely see them building like resorts and stuff. Like, oh yes, English Channel,
and they wouldn't survive it. They wouldn't survive probably about 100 years.
Yeah,
because they just fall into the sea. Then
that's terrible.
So that's why they probably want to stop developers getting it, because developers are just like, yeah, let's make the money as fast as we can. But it's like, yeah, you do realize it's not supposed to be on at the edge of a cliff. Yeah. I mean, it might look spectacular. It might look wonderful to have this resort, but it's like, again, you've built into the foundation of this.
I think it's really interesting that these cliffs and things like that in Britain don't have any sort of like
guardrail?
Yeah, walls or guardrails or anything like that. Like, I'm sure protecting the general public or keeping like people from just idiots, trying to go for the gram, like by getting as close as they can to the edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I think it's cool because
I wouldn't go near the cliffs on a good day. Go near to the edge on a good day because
like a non-windy day.
Well, I mean, there's never a non-windy day in Dover, really.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like that they're just like, oh, we'll just let people be responsible for themselves, and if they get too close to the edge, that's their problem.
The end.
Because I don't know. I mean, you just don't. I think if that were over here, there'd be like guardrails. There'd be guardrails.
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't do it.
People don't want to get sued. You see. Yeah. It's like in Britain, it's like, oh, I fell off the cliff and I'm going to sue you now. My family's suing you because you didn't have a guardrail. It's like, well, you see, you don't really want to like go too near a cliff edge, you know? You don't want to jump off a cliff. Mm. So it's like over here, but it's like, yeah, they probably win that case, you know? Against whoever, you know? Not too many notable people are from that you recognize.
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
Miriam Margolyes. She was Professor Sprout in Harry Potter.
Sprout,
and the Spanish Infanta in Blackadder. And she's well-beloved TV actress and film actress too.
Yeah.
And Edward Pellew.
Which is who?
He was a naval commander.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pellew sounds familiar.
Yeah, from Hornblower.
Yeah, maybe.
Captain Pellew. Captain Pellew, sir.
All right,
yes.
Maybe.
I think that's going to do it.
Yeah, so we appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, we appreciate your support so much. And we will talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.